Amroha Se. Now, Amroha Se is an NGO which is trying to wean away the women workers who work in BD plantations, who work at BD factories, and they get afflicted with tuberculosis. So they're weaning away these women which have been forced into this manual labor out there and making them make some gifts which you and I can buy, handbags, various other stuff, to not only have a very cost-effective gift to give, but also to wean away these people who've been forced into manual labor. So they have a stall here, Amroha Se. I request all of you to go and see and in future try and make some purchases from there. So let's start the post-coffee session. The session is, we're going to start is entrepreneurship and how they can leverage the global ecosystem, economic systems, and what all they have to learn from there. That's the next session. And the person who's going to be talking about it is Monika, who's here. And Monika is most appropriate speaker because she spent a considerable amount of time in US as well as in India, and she's worked with consulting firms like KPMG. So she's had a bird's eye view of what's happening around the world, and also a bird's eye view of what corporates and startups are doing and how they have a synergistic existence with the environment. Over to Monika. And Monika, incidentally, she runs a digital marketing platform called AllConnect. She's going to share details about how to leverage content marketing for rural marketing. Over to Monika.
I hope most of the people are back from the coffee. It's a Saturday. I understand that, first of all, thanks for coming. That too on a Saturday morning. I'm sure you must have left your family and some break time today to come and listen to us. How many of you here are startup entrepreneurs? Okay, great. So I would like to know, like, the demographics of the audience. How many of you, like, what are the interests you're having in startup? Are you coming because you plan to start your own in few years, or you want to network? Anyone from the audience who is not a startup entrepreneur and is here can share some insights on what is the motivation they have this morning? I'm going to open it a little bit and make it more interactive, so pardon me for asking so many questions. But I'm just curious, like, what is the, why people are, how can people benefit the most out of this?
Soak in new learnings.
Yeah.
Get to understand different business models.
Great.
And speakers, various kinds, and network with them also.
Right, wonderful. Okay, great. So a little bit of introduction about myself. I have spent 15 years in corporate, so that was a long time. And I began my own startup journey last year. When I quit my corporate job, I was so fascinated with startup, and I read all these great books on startups, and I thought that, oh my God, look at Mark Zuckerberg, and look at Steve Jobs, and look at Elon Musk, who is my biggest icon, and where they have been in their life and how they have made themselves. So what can I do? And just, you can hear 2 days ago story, you must have heard of how Walmart bought Flipkart. And that's again, each of those founders who have spent 10 years building that company. Now all billionaires, not only they are billionaires, but a lot of their employees are also millionaires. So I was really enchanted by the startup world. And I began by advising some startups. And I found one of the big challenges that startups are facing, or lots of MSC companies and brands in India are facing, is how they are developing awareness of their products or services, how they are branding themselves. So having seen the other side of the world, which is mostly living in US, I've seen most of the products and things that we use today, we still see that we see them as the leaders. Like I myself, as a person who has used e-commerce for many years, I can tell you that I have almost 90% of the time I have bought it from Amazon, and only 10% time I have bought it from Flipkart. So why is that? We always go with big American companies, we trust them quickly, we think their product will have a better customer service. I know I buy anything from Amazon, the most expensive iPhone, the most expensive fridge. I know that I can rely on the customer service. If I'm not happy, they can take it again back from me. So I saw this problem happening in a lot of startups. Like they have great products, they are IIT engineers, they have developed IoT product, but they can only sell it to a few people they know. After some time, the scalability becomes an issue. After that, their revenue becomes an issue. Then becomes the funding becomes an issue. Branding doesn't happen, so everything is kind of in a situation where people are struggling. So I wanted to tackle that problem, and that's how I came up with the idea of All Connect, which is basically into content marketing and influencer marketing. So All Connect content marketing, I'm sure that word is no longer new to anyone here. Content marketing is all about creating different kind of content for social media, for digital world, whether it goes on a website, it goes to your Facebook, everywhere. And then influencer marketing is a very new concept that's happening, which is basically if somebody who's a thought leader is endorsing your product, it has a better chance of success. And I was just talking to somebody in the crowd, and they said, you know, Patanjali has really disrupted such established foreign brands like Unilever and Pepsi. You know, people are not going and buying Pepsi. So many people are going and buying Patanjali. And one of the things I tell them is that while Patanjali became an overnight hit, if not even overnight, maybe in few years, very quickly it was able to disrupt such kind of established brand because it has a force behind it called Ramdev Baba. So he has already established his presence so much around the country of talking about yoga and talking about healthy food that when he came and endorsed this brand, that was made somewhere only in Haridwar or a small place and not in very exotic locations where Unilever spent so much of money, people were able to trust him. And that trust helped this brand to grow so fast. So another company, just Sachin Tendulkar, is launching in sports, you know. So that sports kind of, I mean, we know all Sachin is a god of sports. So when he establishes a company, he starts talking about sports, whether it's cricket, badminton, you know, he always has a better influence. And so that the concept of influencer marketing is something very similar. How do you find the right influencer for your brand so that it helps your company to grow and kind of possibly scale and become as big as what these other examples I just shared with you. So interestingly, my topic is a little different than what I've been doing recently, but geopolitical factors that are happening around the world. So geopolitical, you know, I'm a big follower of what's happening and trending around. We have news feed, lots of things are happening. I see today that this entire world is connected, and what is happening in US, it immediately passes on to what's you know, our decisions we're making in India. So just few days ago, how many of you know that Donald Trump has passed a regulation or a kind of a ordinance which talks about this trade surplus that he's trying to cover, you know, especially with China, which is a very big manufacturing hub in the world right now. He's trying to close a gap by saying that lots of American companies can now manufacture in US itself. They don't have to go this and do it in China. And so how many of you know, like, what impact did it have around the world? Any company you know that, you know, has an impact? So if you're a manufacturing company, let's say you're manufacturing something, and you're into exports also, this is going to be huge. And I work for a bank called HSBC for some years, and I remember they are hugely into trade finance. So their work has been largely around how to finance such companies which are exporting their products from China to, let's say, US or UK and different places. And they had issued a share buyback of $2 billion. $2 billion on that news. So that the share, they can control the price. But still there was a 5% dip in the share price on that very release of the news by Donald Trump. Right? They are companies. Amazon. How many have heard of Amazon? Everybody, right? He has issued something about Amazon a few days ago, and there was again a huge loss in the dip in the Amazon stock price as well. So really he is making, there is a company I was reading about somewhere that there are, based on his tweets, based on just his tweets, which he does it very frequently and is very, you know, open about it. There are companies whose stock prices fluctuate based on those tweets, right? And so there's a startup which says like, because you just tweeted, you can expect your stock price to move from here to there, right? So that's how the people are following so much about what Donald Trump is saying and especially tweeting, because that's really affecting lots of companies globally. In China, people are now worried because how this new sanctions are going to play is now to be seen. We in India are not a manufacturing hub like China, but we are into services, and I think that services industry has also been affected to some extent. There's all this debate going around H1B. There's also going things like I know that I live there, and the cost of an employee of hiring in not in Chicago, New York, but in Knoxville, Tennessee, can be as good as cost of hiring an employee in Bangalore or Mumbai, which already has now very high cost of living. So he's trying to see how we can employ people, more and more people there. Services industry is, in a way, is also getting affected. Manufacturing is now getting affected. So there's a lot of these geopolitical factors that are now affecting a lot of the businesses, especially because of the, recent, Trump administration that is there in US. So again, every country has a role to play. I see, again, as US is having its own, we see that China is also now emerging, right? So we are seen as it has become one of the topmost countries in Asia Pacific that has risen with a very good 8 to 9% of growth over many years. And it is a big elephant in the room for everybody to take care of. I mean, it has really shown its dominance. There are big companies like Alibaba now coming out there, which have threatened Google. In fact, in China, if you've ever been there, they will not, they don't allow a lot of these American companies like Google and things like that. So in China, if you see how the startup ecosystem has grown, is that they have made it their own ecosystem, which is mostly around their homegrown Didi instead of, and the Uber was acquired by Didi, and their homegrown e-commerce system, and Alibaba, which is Jack Ma's company, is the biggest marketplace, and it is already a $1 trillion company in valuation, and Amazon and Walmart cannot even think of going after it. Right? In India, though, that has happened in China. So China is obviously has its own power. It has its military power, which it has shown to US that they will not bow it easily. They have a huge manpower, right? In the days of, they are still the #1 country in terms of the population they have. So they are coming up with these new technologies, and the dominance of China is kind of seen as inevitable. So we'll see that shift of power also might happen in coming years of how China has its own place in the world. At the same time, we see that the European Union is kind of also setting itself in a new way, right? We have this Brexit that happened few years ago. Is London going to be still the financial capital of the world? How is that changing? Lots of countries in Europe also have suffered through bad economic times, like Spain and Greece. But they are also trying to revive back. So there is Russia has its own role to play, right? Russia has its own interference in the lots of those Syria things and Israel things, Iran things that's going around. So we see that all this is affecting oil prices. So even we are in India, we don't know why we are paying more at petrol pumps, but that is something to do with some decision which has been taken in Saudi or some decision that has been taken by Russia, right? So all these things are getting affected to us. So your startup is not immune to all this. If you're a company, I see a lot of my friends are running startups who are getting US clients. But are they aware of the tax? Are they aware of those policies that's going to affect them in long run, right? So we all have to adjust to that kind of what the things are going around the world, and then accordingly, how can we be more agile and adapt to those policies? Also, one of the interesting things that happened recently is that for many years after financial crisis, we know that the Federal Reserve Bank of India or ECB, which is the biggest bank in Europe, they have kept the interest rates very low, in fact negative. So there was a free flow of money which was used for a lot of funding for the startups. But now, after many years, those interest rates are rising, So one of the other things what I hear from people is, I know that you want to go and get that investor, I want you to get that funding, but even big investors are having problem because that money which was given to them at 0% rate now will be charged at 1%, 2%. So can your startup or your company that you're looking for investors to come in, how much, that's not going to be easy for them because now that margin for them of getting profit is reduced. So lots of those changes have also happened. I'm sure some of you might be following around that topic. But I think these big major changes just of last few months, I'm trying to say, and like how that's kind of things you need to keep in mind when it comes to your own startup. Also, one of the big things that's happening is definitely the technological change in terms of innovation and disruption. When it comes to big companies like a lot of American companies getting into AI, blockchain, and those are again like IBM doing something which has to do with blockchain versus our startup in India doing those things. I think there's a huge time lag that happens. So how do you, and as a startup, I think that's a good thing that today you can learn so much from those companies, right? And customize it for your own audience in India, and then tailor it to meet their demands better. So there is some negative side which I highlighted, and then the positive sides also, right? The overall the knowledge of this things that is disruption, innovation that's happening is also good for you because as a startup you would learn so much from the from these American companies or these established companies, right? Like what do they did to get from that first 1,000 customers. Somebody said 1,000 hours. I always said 1,000 customers also are very important. Once you have that 1,000 customers in your users of your company or product, user of the product of your company, then it becomes so much easy. Uber has become today a $60 billion company, but they did not grow and market as much they did with the first 1,000 customers. So remember, those first 1,000 customers also matter a lot for you. If once you have that critical mass, in your who have believed in you, supported you, trusted you, then it becomes a lot more easier to scale from 1,000 to 1 million or 2 million and so on. So some of these insights I've shared is what I read, I try to follow, and I talk to some of those people, especially who are interested to get into India market and how the India market is going to be different for them compared to the US market. So I wanted to share some insights with all of you. I'm always very passionate about branding and marketing. So how, if anyone has any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer that too. Okay, that was good.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to India's first corporate news channel. We invite interviews, articles, press releases from your organization. Visit our portal www.indianconventions.com. Thank you.